This is Tipping Point Radio. I'm Craig Merriweather, and you're listening to Garden of the Mystics. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That is a quote from Marianne Williamson's classic book, A Return to Love. Marianne is on the show today, and I couldn't be more thrilled as she is one of my all-time favorite authors, speakers, and teachers. Pretty much all-around amazing person. You may know Marianne from one of her New York Times best-selling books like The Law of Divine Compensation, The Age of Miracles, Everyday Grace, A Woman's Worth, Illuminata, Healing the Soul of America, A Course in Weight Loss, The Gift of Change, and A Year of Miracles, Daily Devotions and Reflections. Or maybe you've seen her on television programs such as Oprah, Larry King Live, Good Morning America, and Charlie Rose. In 1989, she founded Project Angel Food, a Meals on Wheels program that serves homebound people with AIDS in the Los Angeles area. Today, Project Angel Food serves over 1,000 people daily. Marianne also serves on the board of directors of the Results Organization, working to end the worst ravages of hunger and poverty throughout the world. And today she's on Tipping Point Radio, and I'm so happy to have her here. Here's my interview with Marianne Williamson. Hello, Marianne. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Having been talking with some of my friends and been getting some emails from people and talking with them, and plus some of the things going on in my own life, it leads me to want to ask you about being stuck. And with getting to a certain age in life and with kids in school and jobs and maybe working at a place that doesn't thrill you, but you need the health insurance, or there can be a sense of being stuck in life, hitting that glass ceiling of life. Here's where I am, but there is where I want to be, high on the hilltop, way far over there, but there doesn't seem to be any plausible way of getting there. There's a little momentum, little movement, except maybe backwards. And there's that famous quote by Albert Einstein where he says, there are only two ways to live your life. One is if nothing is a miracle, and the other is if everything is a miracle. And it's hard to look at life as a miracle when you're frustrated, disappointed, and angry, and that's blocking the love, appreciation, and gratitude. So the big question is, how do you get unstuck? Or maybe another way of asking that is, why do some of us seem to kind of plateau at mediocre, and how do you move to great?
Well, it's interesting. You said it's difficult to see the miracle when you are angry and depressed, and it's really the opposite. Once you see that life is a miracle, you stop being angry and depressed for the following reason. The entire drama that you just described is an ego drama. I'm this age. I have this job. I don't like it. These are my circumstances. This is my glass ceiling. As long as that is your construct of self-identification, the life of your body, then you will be stuck, because that's no real life force. It's not a creative life force. That is a perception of self in which you are looking to a realm to generate life force that of itself doesn't have one. So the Course in Miracles says that enlightenment is a shift in perception from body identification to spirit identification. Then you're no longer saying, I'm stuck, because it's not about you. You realize that the force of life within you is never stuck. He says in the Course in Miracles, do not be concerned about your own readiness. Just be consistently aware of mine. So on the level of my body, lines like, I'm too old make sense. I don't have a job I like make sense. And if that's all you think your life is, you will be depressed. And it's inevitable. But if you realize that's just an outer casing, that the life that flows through you is spirit, and it has nothing to do with your age. It has to do with the nature of life itself. And that's what you identify with. See, the Course in Miracles says you are heir to the laws that rule the world you identify with. So if you only identify with the world that you described at the beginning, you're not going to see any miracles and you're not going to experience any because you don't have a miracle-minded perception. But if we say, there is something in me that is infinitely creative, it is an infinite wellspring of creativity, it has nothing to do with my age, it makes me master of circumstances rather than puts me at the effect of circumstances, and to the extent to which I dedicate my life that I might be of service to this force, then this force has literally miraculous power to lift me above any limited circumstances to a life of the infinite possibility for creativity and joy.
Okay, well, if somebody's identifying with that a life that they don't want, how do you unidentify with it?
Well, that's a perceptual choice, but it is something that begins as an abstract concept, but it is through meditation. Now, I'm a student of the Course in Miracles, for instance. So in the Course, which is just one statement, one form of the statement of a universal truth, it has a text, which is the intellectual basis of the belief system, which is what I just described. But then there is the workbook, and the workbook is the 365 days of lessons that train the mind to think along those lines. That's the issue, what you were just saying. We are taught a thought system from the time that we arrive onto this earth. We are taught the thought system that the life of the body is life, period. And so we develop mental habits that stem from that belief system. So when you say, how do you change that? It takes practice. It is a retraining of your attitudinal muscles. So whether it is the workbook of the Course in Miracles or it is any other serious spiritual path, that's what any serious spiritual path is the dismantling of the thought system of fear and limitation that you described dominating this world, and the acceptance instead of an entirely different way of seeing life and seeing who we are in the constellation of a greater life.
It seems like you have to train while, I'm sorry to be trying to be contrary here, but it seems like you have to be training while you're still living, and maybe it's an illusional life, but you're still living, or you have that perception of that life that you dislike.
Well, yes, but your perception of the life is what gives the life meaning. And so, it's kind of like physical exercise. You never get to stop. Yeah. And same with spiritual exercise. But if you identify with a greater life and you are in a job that is kind of dead end, that is so out of alignment with the greater life that you, as soon as you shift your perception, then that job will simply fall away. Now, I'm not saying that glibly, but I am saying that that is the way things go, that we are responsible for the mental perception, the mental filter that we put in front of our eyes. And I'm not saying it happens in a day, but that is the whole idea, just like when you go to the gym to hone your physical musculature, to hone your body. You can have like a new body. It's a completely different formation. We do the same thing with the mind through spiritual practice.
Okay, well, let me ask you a more broader question about the world that I've also been talking about with friends and such. There seems to just be so much sadness and I don't know, anger and just horrendous situations going on in the world. And I like to be loving and appreciative and grateful, and then I occasionally see the headlines, and even the work you do, like with your project Angel Food and with the Results Organization, you see the poverty in the world, you see the hunger in the world, and how is one to be grateful and appreciative when you see so much suffering going on?
We have come to the end of a historical epic. And we are seeing all around us in the circumstances that you just alluded to, the consequences of humanity creating a civilization which is organized according to economic rather than humanitarian principle. And this global collective situation is for us all together what any problem is in our lives on an individual basis. It is to say, this situation is the product of how you've been thinking. You're going to continue that way? Because it's completely up to you. So humanity has not put love for each other first. And it has not put reverence for the earth first. It has not put living and dwelling in peace and beauty and harmony for ourselves and all living things first. So we are so powerful that when we live our lives from any basis other than loving each other, what we get is what we got. And so this is an extremely important time. If we want to just identify ourselves as victims of this situation, we can. But if you do that on an individual level, that doesn't transform things. And if we do it on a collective level, in terms of our relationship to any idea of global citizenship, it doesn't get us anywhere either. But I think that we're living at a time when many people realize that what we need on this planet, and what is ultimately what creates any great social change, is a critical mass of people who recognize that we're moving in a wrong-minded direction, and that we have created for ourselves a very, very grim probability vector for the future. And I think there's a great uprising of consciousness going on right now. And I think our being on this radio show is an example, one of millions going on all over the planet, where people are seeking a higher conversation in order to live from a higher place and to take this ship that we're all on, which is at this point kind of like the Titanic headed for the iceberg, and turn it around. And this kind of new consciousness where we see love needs to be the bottom line. People are feeling moved to express that in business and in relationships and in education and in medicine and in politics. And so it's not so much that you feel grateful for circumstances. You grieve circumstances. I mean, the circumstances that you allude to are not to be grateful for. They're to be grieved deeply. And it is correct to be morally outraged by them. The gratitude is towards a power in us but not of us, greater than us, who can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves, that will give us the power and the talent and the insight and the ability to provide a kind of revolutionary impulse on the earth at this time, which will turn the ship around before it hits the iceberg. We're grateful for the possibility of miracles.
And yet there are times when I'm feeling, outnumbered, outfunded, outmaneuvered. And, there's days where I just shrug my shoulders. I don't know how to fix this.
Well, I think that we all have those days. But I think we want to remember that none of us individuals are being called on to fix it. The abolitionists, you say outnumbered. No great social movement ever happened because the majority woke up one day. The majority didn't wake up and say, let's free the slaves. The majority didn't wake up and say, let's give women the right to vote. The majority of colonists were not even, were actually still royalists during the time of the American Revolution. So, imagine what it was like for the abolitionists. Talk about feeling outnumbered, talk about feeling like they didn't have the resources, and same with the women suffragettes. But, the critical mass, being outnumbered, we shouldn't be so overly concerned about majority or about numbers, because a critical mass is a small portion of a population. It's like in evolution when the species is moving in a direction that is maladaptive for its survival. Then a mutation occurs. The mutation is never the majority of the members of the species, but the descendants of the mutation behave in a more survivable manner. And so that's what's happening today. It's that trim tab theory. Don't worry about numbers. The kind of shifts that will occur on the planet now is not according to a horizontal axis. It's according to a vertical axis. It's not about how many of us there are. It's about how deep we go. And that's why, like in this conversation you and I are having right now, not about let's dumb down the conversation so more people will listen. It's about how deeply can we go into what this conversation really is. And that becomes the force multiplier, because that exerts the power of conviction. And I believe it is happening. And the fact that the majority isn't in the conversation yet, if you look at that in historical terms, it doesn't matter.
All right, well, let's go to practicals that an individual might be able to do when feeling overwhelmed and feeling outnumbered and outmaneuvered. You catch yourself in the middle of the day, find yourself frustrated, find yourself angry, and you catch your breath, and then what can you do to kind of right your heart, right your mind?
If you had meditated that morning, the chances of you feeling that way that afternoon are greatly diminished. You wake up in the morning, you take a shower, you take a bath, because you don't wish to take yesterday's dirt on your body out into the day. But if you don't meditate and you don't pray, and you don't do the kind of inspirational purification of your mind and heart that such things as meditation allow, then you're carrying yesterday's stress out into the day, and not just your stress, but the stress of everybody in West Africa, and everybody in Iraq, and everybody in Turkey, and Kobani, and Syria. So then you're depressed, That's why it's so important, particularly in the morning. If the Dalai Lama said to save the world, we must have a plan. But unless we meditate, no plan will work. So meditation is really everything right now, because it is that which determines whether or not we're at the effect of the thought system and the worldly circumstances that you keep alluding to. How do you get out of the suffering of that plane? You can't. That plane is suffering. But the spiritual message of Buddha and Jesus and the Kabbalah and all of the great religious traditions is to awaken, is to live within this realm from a different place inside your own mind. And then you become someone who is less attached to those circumstances, and you automatically then become someone with the power to transform those circumstances. And that's how the change occurs.
Now, do you have a specific kind of meditation that would be better? Because people can get overwhelmed with them different kind of techniques and visualizations and things. Is there something that maybe people can start with and then find their own thing that works for them?
I am personally a student of A Course in Miracles. So I do the workbook of the Course, and I'm also a student of Transcendental Meditation. I have a meditation tape that people can find on Marianne.com, but there are so many meditation tapes out there, and there are so many meditation paths. So when you say people are overwhelmed with how many, I think it's more like there's a candy store. Pick the one you love the best. We're living at a time where these techniques are so available. A lot of times people say, I don't know what to do, when really they know what to do. They just they're not in the practice of really listening to their own heart about what to do. And if you really don't know what spiritual path or meditation technique would be right for you, if you say a little prayer inside your heart, books will fall at your feet within days.
I love the fact that you keep calling yourself a student of the Course in Miracles because you've done so much teaching and written so many books about it and things, and yet you're still learning stuff from it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not an enlightened master, I'm afraid. A friend of mine said the other day about himself, he said, I'm not self-actualized, but I am self-actualizing. I thought that was great, and I would put myself in that category. A Course in Miracles says that we are all students and we're all teachers. I think that there is a teaching model, which is the actual enlightened master. I think they exist. I'm just not one. There is another paradigm, another kind of teaching model that the Course in Miracles refers to, where the teacher is someone who is half a step ahead in time. And I think that's what makes me a teacher of A Course in Miracles. Number one, just that I started reading it before a lot of people that I know did. I started reading the books in the 1970s. And I don't speak from a place of, I have fully actualized this principle 24/7. I have become this. I never deviate. That's not who I am. But I think that there is benefit when someone can say, number one, I understand it. Number two, this is what happened in my life when I got it right. And this is where I was thinking, and this is what happened. And this is what happened. I can now see when I did not practice this principle. This is where my mind was, and this is what the consequences were. And I think that has value as well.
Mm. Yeah, well, I want to let everybody know, Marianne already mentioned it, but her website is marianne.com, and from there you can also find her Facebook page and Twitter page. Marianne does events all over the United States, all over the world, but every Monday, or most Mondays, she's in LA doing a live workshop, and those actually are going out online, and you can go to her website and find out more about how to find those out online, and of course all sorts of different kind of books. And I don't even know where to begin with your books, Marianne. You have so many, and they're so wonderful. Maybe just look through the list and find one that, maybe judge a book by its cover, and just grab one that calls to you. And of course you find those at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any of your local independent bookstores. But Marianne, I just want to, you get a lot of questions when you do your workshops and when you do your Monday events. I was wondering, is there some question that's coming up a lot lately that you've been having to, answer and deal with?
Well, I think that the things that you've been talking about since we've been together today they tap into the general zeitgeist, which is everybody's so unhappy right now because the world seems to be falling apart around us. And so I think the larger spiritual conversation could not be more relevant. And the thing I love about the Course in Miracles is that it doesn't talk about anything specific, yet it talks about everything, because you learn that spiritual principles can be overlaid upon any situation. The Course in Miracles says you think you have many different problems, but you really only have one, and that is your separation from God. And what that translates into in practical terms is that the real problem in any situation is that we are not in our right mind. We are not interpreting other people's behavior clearly. We're not thinking clearly, because we are basing our perceptions on the evidence of the world rather than the knowledge of the heart. And whether it's our health or our money or our work life or our relationships or our politics or anything else, that spiritual journey from fear and separation and conflict to love and peace and forgiveness changes everything, because it changes our thinking. And the metaphysical student realizes that thought is the level of cause, and everything that we experience in the world is the effect of that cause. So it's interesting, no matter what we're talking about, no matter what topic, when you say, well, what topic is on people's minds, it doesn't matter what particular topic we're talking about, the answer is always the same, and that's, where have I not forgiven? Who am I attacking? Who am I judging? Who am I blaming? Where am I attaching my perception to the mortal world of limited possibility rather than to the quantum field of unlimited possibility? Where am I focused on the past or the future rather than the present?
Yeah. I'm not the oldest man in the world, but I'm, not the youngest either. And there are certain days when you're talking about forgiving and all that, and I just going through my day and I'm thinking, why haven't I gotten this yet? I mean, I read the books, I read the literature, I talk to amazing people like you, and I catch myself making I don't know what you'd call a slip up, or a getting out of my right mind, and certainly not moving with my heart. And I think, why do I not get this yet?
Well, on any given day that I haven't meditated, I know why I haven't gotten it. And I understand as a student of these things that the ego mind is very powerful. The form of ego that is addiction, they talk in AA about how it's very sly and insidious. The force of mind that resists love, what can be called the ego, just the false belief in our separation from each other, is very sly and very powerful when we allow it to be. And that's why, if you don't fill a house with light, don't be surprised that darkness is there. So when we say to ourselves, why haven't I gotten this yet? the question is not why haven't I gotten this yet. It's why haven't I chosen on every day, any given day, to devote my life and devote and commit everything I am and everything I have, any talent, any intelligence, to be in service of light and love and healing on the planet. Because any day that we're not proactive in committing ourselves to be vessels of light, then being surprised that darkness sets in is kind of ridiculous. You know, darkness is to light as fear is to love. You turn on the light, the darkness can't be there. You turn on the love, the fear can't be there. But we were not trained as children to commit ourselves in every situation to being vessels of love. And in situations where we're triggered, where our childhood wound comes up, something happened in our past, we were betrayed, we were hurt, we all have those places in us where in that moment we just don't know how to be totally loving and get our needs met. But I know in my own life, because on one hand I'm exactly where you are. On the other hand, if I'm brutally honest with myself, in those places where I didn't get it, I didn't choose to get it. I was thinking I had a better idea, and that love was not. Somehow I had a better idea. So I think we need to coddle ourselves a little bit less right now. You know, you've talked a lot on this call about, well, what about people who are overwhelmed and stuck? We need to courage up a little bit and recognize how much we've made choices and we can choose again.
Yeah. No, that sounds very familiar, what you're saying. And, I so appreciate your time. I mean, we only got a couple minutes left. And I don't know, you're such a breath of fresh air, Marianne. And every time I read a book or I listen to, I'm a big fan of audiobooks. So when I'm in the car or I'm on a road trip or something, or if possible at work, I listen, and I love your stuff. But every now and then I catch myself forgetting, and there's a certain truth to saying, it's time to courage up, man up, woman up, and do the work that needs to be done, and the training. The wax on, wax off you need to do in the mornings before you start your day, which, sometimes I'm good at and sometimes I'm not. And if I'm honest with myself at those times when my week's not going well and I realize, I haven't been doing my training in the morning.
Well, and that's why we're in each other's lives, We're here to support each other and to remind each other. And it is like you just said, if I don't do my exercise, I shouldn't complain about flabby thighs, right? And if I don't do my spiritual exercise, I shouldn't complain about flabby thought forms. The Course in Miracles says you achieve so little because you have an undisciplined mind.
Yeah.
So we're all here to just remind each other and support each other. And by your having this radio program, you're supporting other people in remembering, and I'm, sure that other people are there to remind you as well. We just start over again in any given instant.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I want to let you know once again, Marianne.com. It's MARIANNE.com, and from there you can find her Facebook and Twitter pages. From there you can also find where she's going to be speaking next or holding a workshop. There's videos and her blog and all the different books and audio programs she's done. You can find from there. And Marianne, I so appreciate your time and willingness to come on the show and talk with us, because I know you're super busy and you're traveling constantly. So I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your having me on.
All right. Bye, Marianne.
Bye-bye.